Doug, what's your time frame tonight, just so we can, I know you got lots to do, so we
I'm good. I'm
appreciate you
good.
joining us.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm good for a little bit. We're good.
Yeah, we talked about last time that you could we could let them talk to you first about, some of their concerns, and then we can go to the referrals after that.
Well, I guess we'll get started then. It's 6 after right now, so I think we might have a couple others pop in here soon, but we'll get started. I guess I'll start, and if anybody else has something to add to fill Doug in, then we can go around. There's just been some concerns on what, we look at all these referrals and make recommendations, but often I don't know that it has a whole lot of influence, and we're wondering how there could be more influence or what kind of zoning changes could be made to keep development out of certain areas that will have a greater impact on farmland other than just the land that the development is being done on. So we wanted to get some of your input. Anybody else have anything to add to that? Tim, I think.
Yeah, I have probably very specifically, we're concerned about the tract of land I guess it would be the east of Route 21 across from Miller Park, and the development of that land. Largely, I believe that it is zoned residential agriculture, and it is not part of any type of agricultural protection area. As a matter of fact, I had my farrier out here today, and he was saying that he signed a petition along with his neighbors. The Millers are upset. Everybody's really concerned that that type of development is going to put a lot of traffic on the road. It's going to impact the agricultural community down from this point south to the south border of the town of Canandaigua. And so what we've been talking about, Doug, is we would like to go ahead and take a look and reappraise where the lines are drawn for agricultural protection. Now that Paddleford Brook has been addressed, in a real serious way, we think that we need to go ahead and protect the agricultural community down in this part of the area as well. It's just going to get more and more difficult for these farmers to do things. The farrier actually said that if it continues, he's going to go ahead and pack up and move. He was talking about Montana, believe it or not. I said, more power to you. But he was on a 22,000 acre ranch out there and thought it was great. So I think that, it's going to get really confrontational. I don't know if you saw the petition that came forward. He was going to provide a copy of that to me. I haven't seen it yet. But I know Donnie Miller, Charlie was in an accident in his barn. He was knocked over by a steer and was in the hospital for 10 days. And so, real serious situation. We have Donnie was very upset that they lost 50 acres of land that they would have planted. By now, it's too late now that the season's gone. So with that said, we're looking for tools, so that the agricultural committee can have a greater impact. And we think that the town should have more tools too, in anything that you think might be appropriate for us to go ahead and help control the situation. Does anybody have anything else that they'd like to add?
I guess specifically to that area, and obviously we farm that land. The reason I didn't bring it up is I don't really know. I mean, I know it's already, Morel's already own it. I kind of think that, it'd be nice if there's something we could do, but I don't know how realistic it is at this point, but I guess it does need to be discussed.
Right. So let's discuss some of this, because you guys I'm glad you're asking this. Seriously, I really am. And I want to talk to you about a couple of different things. I want to share my screen here with you for a second, because I have pulled up here on my other screen, the strategic farmland protection area. Can everybody see that okay?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So the parcel that specifically we're talking about there is the Morel parcel, but I want to talk to you about a couple of other things too, but let's start with that one. All right. So I'm just going to zoom in here and blow this up so that we can all see this, right? So we're talking about State Route 21 in the corner. It's this parcel right here. So it's right where the arrow is. So it's not in the strategic farmland protection area. The Morels have owned it, to the best of my knowledge, for about 15 years, and they've always planned for it to be developed, and have leased it out for agricultural purposes. And what the Morels have told me is that the plan was always to finish Lakewood Meadows and then come to this parcel and develop this. So I don't think that it was shocking for anybody, truthfully, that was the plan and that's what happened, because that's what they've been saying all along, and it's not in the strategic farmland protection area. The thing that scares the crap out of me is we have this strategic farmland protection area, but there's no real protection. So let's say Mr. Developer, and I'm just going to pick a spot, wants to develop this parcel or any of these parcels, they can do it. That's a bigger concern to me, truthfully, than whether or not this parcel that's not in the strategic farmland protection area gets developed. And I don't mean to diminish what you're saying, and we can definitely look at the lines. That was all done as part of the agriculture enhancement plan, and we can look and see whether or not lines need to be redrawn. But I can tell you right now, I've heard from very solid information, this Taylor farm here that's in both the Paddleford Brook Greenway and the strategic farmland protection area, that there's a developer looking at that for a couple of hundred homes. And there's no protection in place to prevent that from happening. So when you're talking about the loss of agriculture lands, yes, we've got to do something. And truthfully, I need your help. I need the Agriculture's Committee's help to lobby the town board to put some protection measures in place that don't exist right now. Now, we are making progress. We're taking baby steps, though, when we need to take some big leaps. And let me tell you about one of those. So Gary chairs our ordinance committee, and there's a thing called conservation subdivision. And conservation subdivision is basically what I would refer to as a get out of jail free card for the developers. Because the developer can look at a parcel of land and they can say, okay, here's 40 acres. I could build 40 houses on that. But you know what? If I come in under a conservation subdivision, I might be able to build 50 acres or maybe even 60 units or 50 or 60 units and set aside 5-10 acres for protection and conservation. And that has happened time after time after time, including this project that we're talking about here at 21. And it's happened time after time. The ordinance committee, and we hired Labella Associates, who actually wrote our open space plan and our agriculture enhancement plan. We hired them to help us rewrite that conservation subdivision to put some teeth in it so that the planning board has some leverage so that the developer doesn't have necessarily that get out of jail free card, and it has to be meaningful conservation. So that's a baby step, right? But what you guys are talking about are giant steps, because if we don't, exactly what you said, Tim, it's going to be impossible for especially larger farming operations to continue, because they're going to have to skip over so many different areas. So I understand what you're saying, but I'm very, very worried we have never put any real teeth into the protection of the Paddleford Brook Greenway and the strategic farmland protection area. We identified them as areas where farmland is important, agricultural operations are in existence. I just recently had a conversation with a developer about a parcel not too far off of 332 in the strategic and the Paddleford Brook Greenway. And I said, well, that's our strategic farmland protection area. Why don't we look at another area of the town? And his response to me was, well, is there anything that would prevent me from putting a housing development there currently? And I had to say no, because we don't have anything. So I hear what you're saying, and yes, we need, but we're not out of the woods with these other things yet. And that's where we need your help.
Yes, I want to make just a couple comments on that because that stuff I think about all the time. Like I figure that the land that on 21 there, that it's Morels have owned it for a long time. I'm gonna say it's kind of lost,
Mhm.
and we got to focus on the other stuff, like you were saying, Doug. That is concerning. But I don't know the perfect answer to it either. The biggest thing is, I can't fault somebody for wanting to sell their land for the most money because
Right.
that's what people want to do. But there has to be some way for, we have there's some land on Buffalo Street that's for sale right close to ours, but at $8,000 an acre or so, we're not going to buy that for farmland. So that's the real problem, and I don't
Right.
know what the answer is, but
Well, I would.
other than I guess if I'm sure it's very difficult to change zoning, but if
Yes.
zoning some zoning was changed in certain areas, that would be the only real thing. I think. I don't know what Doug has to say about
Yeah.
that.
Go ahead. I'll wait.
No, go ahead, Tim. I'll respond to that, but go ahead.
I was going to say that, it doesn't, since there's no real teeth in this, whatever tools are put into place in the town of Canandaigua will equally affect Paddleford Brook area as well as, in the southern part of the town. And, it needs to be well thought out and put into place across the entire town.
Right.
And so it needs to be more of a sweeping type of policy and strategy to get development in the areas where it needs to be, and not, put pressure on development in agriculture areas.
Right. So you're absolutely right. And I know you both kind of were talking about, and Bob, you mentioned the petition there, or Tim, maybe you mentioned the petition. So the petition, we did receive that petition. That petition was very specific, asking the town board to put a moratorium on development in the SCR1 zoning district. So the problem with that is the SCR1 zoning district is largely this area right here. It's this area that's not in the strategic farmland protection area. It tends to be the housing developments, Lakewood Meadows, Fox Ridge, this whole area. Yes, it also includes this parcel that's here, but it's generally this area. What I get concerned about is, yes, we can certainly talk about that, but you have all of this also that is AR1 and AR2. If we're going to advocate for something, and I said this to Gary too, if we're going to do a moratorium, which I don't think it doesn't seem like the way that was at least requested, that there wasn't support for the request that was presented. But if you're going to do some sort of moratorium, include the AR1 and the AR2, because then you're at least including that whole big, huge strategic farmland protection area, and not just that little SCR1 area. We've been hearing from a lot of residents saying they support open space protection and they support farmland protection that generally live in this area. And it seems that is targeted at a specific couple of pieces of property, being this parcel right here. It's the old Everwild parcel, the Cook parcel off of Middle Cheshire Road, and the Morel parcel up. And it seems like there's a lot of emphasis on those two things, those two parcels. But I go back to, there's this whole big, I have to zoom out even to show it all to you. There's this whole other area that we need to be concerned about. And this doesn't even include the strategic forest protection area that we have as part of the open space in the rural residential area. So when it comes to changing zoning, it could absolutely be done. And there's a variety of things to take into account. We have the Paddleford Brook Greenway Plan. We have the Strategic Farmland Protection Area and the Agriculture Enhancement Plan. We have the Open Space Plan that really calls out for protecting and promoting the protection of agriculture in these areas. We have the Sewer Master Plan, which calls for not running sewer lines to those areas where there's going to put undue development pressure on the agricultural operations, like for instance, in the strategic farmland protection area. And we have the water master plan that talks about the same, and it talks about lateral restrictions in those areas where agricultural operation might be negatively impacted. So when you talk about changing zoning, all of those things factor in. Yes, the sewer development does tend to follow sewer. If there's an opportunity for sewer, that makes it, it greases the skids a little for a developer, as opposed to them having to do their own. With Morel, in that particular project right here at 21, the sewer is not on the property, but it's close enough that they can go over and connect to it. So it's not a huge roadblock versus some of these other areas. But maybe there needs to be some rewrite of zoning or something in the town code that would make it more restrictive for development, major subdivision development in the strategic farmland protection area, especially in those areas where zoning, or where, for instance, sewer is not planned. Now, so here's the catch-22, right? You have the farmer that, Bob, you talked about, that maybe they own the property and they want to cash some out of it. Do you want to prevent the farmer from being able to sell a road frontage or 2 lots? Or do you just want to say no major housing development? So our town code defines a major housing development as 4 or more homes. So maybe there's some caveat in there where the minor subdivisions, 3 or fewer lots, so that the farmer that wants to sell off a road frontage lot to cash out some of his land has that ability still, but you prevent the large housing development from taking place. So I'm talking a lot. I'll pause there and let you guys kind of jump in and chat.
What about even targeting certain soil types or things like that to try to really protect the better land and have, it's reality, there's going to be some development, and try to target maybe poorer land or less desirable land.
Right. Well, and that's really, that's a lot, of what was incorporated into the whole agriculture enhancement plan. Many of you were involved with that, in the writing of that. And that's why the strategic farmland protection area was created the way it was. And you can see right here on the map, the prime farmland, all of this area is predominantly included in the strategic farmland protection area. You've got the prime farmland of drained is generally up in this area. Yes, there were some pieces that were not specifically included, but a lot of those pieces already had some sort of development or something occurring on them anyway. And so that's why they were just outside of the area. It did come over to grab the Weifels farm that was protected right here. I'm still sharing my screen, right? Yeah, it did protect the Weifels farm right here, and then came over to pick up some of this. But then, some of these other pieces were so scattered that it didn't necessarily include the strategic farmland protection area, didn't necessarily include those. So the soil types was absolutely a factor in the creation of that. That's why you've got this goofy boundary.
So could we ask a couple of questions here,
Sure,
Doug?
of course, yeah, absolutely.
I'm curious about, identifying some actual steps that could move forward. I've heard about, I think Sarah mentioned before. Sorry, Sarah, if I'm putting words into your mouth.
It's okay. I'll wait to hear what you say first.
Yeah, but we ask, well, why can't we rezone, take RA type of properties and just make them agriculture, and based on what we see, and you said, well, generally the property owner has to request that. Is Doug, would you confirm that for us?
So here's the thing, that generally the property owner is who requests a rezoning, but it is ultimately a town board decision through a local law process and a public hearing process. So the town board could absolutely change the zoning. Now, one thing we can't do is what's called spot zoning. So we can't take, for instance, one parcel that's a farm, and maybe there's a house next to it, and on the other side of it, there's commercial, and on the other side of it, there's something else, and it's the only farm. We can't just have one parcel that is agriculture and it doesn't go along with anything else. You're not allowed to do spot zoning.
Okay.
But with that said, there is no reason why we can't have some sort of either strategic zoning district or an overlay to coincide with this strategic farmland protection area. That could absolutely be done by the town board.
Okay, so what would have to happen in order to, take that and make it regulation?
So we'd have to draw up the specifics associated with it. We'd have to know the area, whether it's an overlay or whether it's the actual changing the zoning. It would need to be a local law that would have to be drafted. It would need to have some public hearings. It would need to go to the ordinance committee. There would be input from all of the different committees, boards. It's a process, truthfully, Gary, I don't know. It would probably take, what, 3 to 6 months, truthfully. I'm just trying to estimate.
Yeah, I would say at least, definitely at least that much.
And then it would ultimately be up to the town board whether or not they would adopt that law that would change the zoning. There's any number of ways to go about that. It's absolutely doable. And it's something I think that we have to figure out a way to do it. The thing that I don't know, truthfully, is the appetite for making it more restrictive or not. I believe that there is some degree of appetite, but I don't know that there's appetite to say you can only do farming or you can only do agriculture on those. So that's something we'd have to work through.
So you probably think it would be better to go ahead and restrict subdivision for major subdivisions. Would that be a better approach to take? Or
So
is that part of the same question? I'm not an expert in this by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, it's a great question, and I don't know exactly where it would land, but to Bob's point that he was making about the landowner, if you're going to tell a landowner that their property is basically worthless and they can do very little with it, they probably have legal recourse against the town, right? So we have to find some sort of a balance, and that's a really, and we've come a long way with the balance spectrum. It used to be that development, I feel like, was wide open in the town of Canandaigua, that you could go build anything, anywhere, any place you want. It seemed like at any time. I feel like we've gotten a lot better with the strategic farmland protection area, the agriculture enhancement area, and the open space area, but our work is not done. And that's exactly why I love that you guys are asking this question, because I've been really concerned about this. I hear these developers looking at these other areas that are starting to creep. And I think that's what you're talking about, is the creep of development into the agriculture community, that unless we do something, it's going to get worse. And so we've got to either stop it or at least slow it down so that it impedes it. And so when we talk about that landowner that maybe does want to cash out or has a need, and they can sell off a piece of property of their parcel without significantly impacting the agricultural operations of the rest of their farm, maybe we need to be more receptive to that than we would be to a large housing development in that area.
Yeah.
And maybe there's some flexibility built in so that the planning board would consider that as part of the subdivision review process.
Yeah, maybe the subdivision review process needs to be evaluated as well. I'm certain that you're evaluating traffic patterns, and environmental impact, and where sewer and water lines are located and how easy it is to connect into those utilities.
Right.
So, there are probably a lot of smaller steps that can be taken. And
Right.
Quite frankly, 3 to 6 months is not very long at all in what we're talking about. So
Let me throw a crazy idea out at you. And I don't know what the numbers, but I'm just going to throw a concept out at you. What if we said to any one of the developers coming along, or even to the example of what we're talking about, what if we allowed the farmer to subdivide off his road frontage and sell that off and cash that out? But as part of the regulations, if he or she is in the strategic farmland protection area, they have to agree to a conservation easement on the rest of it to protect it for agriculture. I think we can get creative. Now, whether or not that whole upholds in court down the road, we'll figure that out down the road. But I think we need to be creative on how we protect some of the rest of these farm parcels for continued agricultural operation Because otherwise, if we don't do something that's out of the box, I hear you guys, we're gonna keep losing farmland.
Yeah, and I think another thing would be good to look at some other areas around that have tried to do some of these things that haven't worked as well. And I know talking about the flexibility and different things is, I grew up in Victor, and when I was in high school during that time, they were trying to do a lot of this stuff, and it obviously didn't work there. I don't think they were trying to save farmland all that much, but they thought they were doing a lot of good by having great big parcels to build a house on, and that's a disaster. So we definitely don't want to go that route. But I think there needs to be flexibility, because you can't tell somebody they can't, if you just tell somebody it's got to be farmland, can't do anything else, that's not going to fly. There's got to be some flexibility, and the road frontage is a possibility, but that can definitely, it has to be done in the right way, because that can make some land pretty hard to farm too. But I think having more discussion on some type of flexible plan that could protect the better land, or cluster houses in a certain area and make more better land available in another spot, would be a direction to go.
What you're kind of saying, Bob, is how can we best find a solution so that development can live alongside farming?
Yeah, I think it really, you have to have some compromise in there.
I agree.
And with this land, because this is also saying, if you say it's got to be farmland, that means there's got to be somebody around in 30 years or so that's going to farm it too, and you don't know that for sure. That's why there needs to be some flexibility.
Mhm.
That's my thought on that.
What would you guys like to see? What would you recommend? Ideally, kind of give me some ideas, concepts, what you would like to see.
We want to see the creep stop. And we think that perhaps, that some case studies need to be looked at to make sure that the policies are going to be effective and not overly zealous or overbearing. And it probably should be based on the quality of the farmland that's there. And I think that you almost could pull out the qualification checkoff list for the PER program and use those.
I guess
Oh, sorry.
my big ones would be proximity to other larger parcels of farmland that would be affected, and the quality of farmland. Possibly maybe access to the farmland also. There's maybe some places that are already quite compromised that are less desirable to farm.
I think it makes it is a good idea to start looking at smaller amounts of being capable of divided in smaller amounts than big ones.
Gary Davis?
Well, one thing, Doug, I think, this committee probably doesn't have any idea that there's a canvas going on for Route 28 for the extended sewers out on that, or the great sewers on that road. When we had the sewer project team, working, we had some hot discussions on that. And we finally come to the conclusion that only went to Risser Road, because there's farmland on the right-hand side of that as you go up to Emerson Road. And then when you get across there, of course, that's all the Purdy property and things like that there. Well, the thing is now, I believe it's the sewer has been changed from what the sewer committee recommended on that stretch. And instead of just going up the Risser Road and stopping there, they've taken it up to Emerson Road and things like that. And extended it, to the west off Emerson Road. And so that's going to create a real problem up in that area. And when things like this happen in these different committees that affect ag land, it should be the same setup for that as other committee where we have to, have put it out for even the ordinance committee puts it out to the other committees to get their thought process on it before they move forward on it.
So what do we need to, that's a good point, Gary. What do we need to do to have that happen?
To have it happen or what?
To make sure that we see that just as we do other things. You said
I don't know. I would think that would be automatic on something like that, either water or, sewers coming from the Public Works Planning Committee. I would think it'd be an obligation that they, do the same as the rest of the committees do, pass it around to the committees to get their input.
I think they will. I just don't think they're to that point yet, but there's active discussion. And I think that's what Gary's trying to give you a heads up on it. I think you'll see it. I'm quite confident you'll see it. But, that's something that was discussed. They were talking about sewer in this area here with an extension. And, the plan was always to stop it well back, the sewer, to stop it before it got up here into the strategic farmland protection area. And then the border really and creeping into the Paddlefield Brook Greenway. And so by bringing it up here, you're really, you're talking about creep and we know development follows sewer. So I understand from a financial perspective why the Planning Public Works Committee is looking at doing that to make it more affordable, to increase the number of units in the project. So in the district, so it's more affordable for the residents that are there. But the challenge is exactly what we're talking about. Then you have sewer in an area where you could potentially face creep of development. And really there's some farmland that the sewer would be going right by. I know that's not what you want to hear, but Gary brought it up. Blame Gary.
Well, I figured, we're talking
No,
about this, the committee should know.
No, that's-
We needed to hear it.
Yeah, because like Doug, you brought up in the beginning, we have these boundaries, but they don't really mean a lot because everything else just continues to creep, and it's either we want the boundaries to really mean something or the town doesn't want them to mean something. So what do you recommend the next steps that we should take, Doug, to start to brainstorm and move forward a little more with some ideas?
I think that, if you really seriously want to get serious about protecting agriculture in the town of Canandaigua, I think if we looked at our strategic farmland protection area, that seems like a logical thing because it's already established. The board has already adopted an agriculture enhancement plan. Ag and Markets has already blessed the plan, saying, yes, this is a good plan. It was approved by the commissioner of the New York State Department of Agriculture Markets. When we do PDRs and everything else that we do, we base it largely, there's all kinds of points and everything associated with the strategic farmland protection area. So I guess what I would say to you guys as a committee is, if you believe in the strategic farmland protection area and you want to protect agriculture in that, we've got to put some teeth into the zoning associated with the protection of agriculture in that area. If you want to include other areas, we can discuss it. We can include other things. I think it becomes a little bit more convoluted, a little bit more challenging because we don't have a defined boundary. But we can absolutely talk about the other areas. But this is an area where we've already said, hey, we see active farmland, larger operations, larger parcels in this area. We want to protect this. We know there's prime soils in this. This seems like a good place where we need to really now step up the teeth for the protection of this area.
It's a good place to start, that's for sure. Since all of this has already been laid out in is policy and approved by all kinds of different levels of government. That's exactly what we need to do. That's exactly where we need to start.
So you need us to come up with some ideas then of what we think some zoning options are.
Well, we can bounce stuff back and forth, but I guess what I would say, the biggest thing is I need to, you guys have got to champion this. I don't know that there's anybody else that can champion this. I'll be by your side and I'll help you through this process and I'll give you ideas and I'll work with you. But we need somebody to raise the flag and champion agriculture protection, because there's a lot of people in our community is growing, and there's any number of interest that people are advocating for at any given time. And really, this one in the protection of the strategic farmland protection area, I feel like that needs to be led by the Agriculture Committee.
I would agree.
I'll second that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree.
Well, we
So,
know,
we could put together a recommendation, on a report right back up, to the town board.
town board.
Yeah. We're going to
I-
recommend that they rezone this.
I would think there'd be quite a lot of support for it, because in polls and stuff, and surveys, agriculture is usually the first item on the list of people, like for the area.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you a question here. Do you want to, if we're talking about zoning, and I'll put together some different things and we can bounce it, I can work with Sarah and we can bounce some stuff over to you and you guys can start talking about stuff. When you're talking about farming protection, and a couple of times I've heard you say like larger farming operations next to each other. Do you want to try to pinpoint that? Do we set a number and say, okay, if the parcel is 50 acres or greater, for instance, just throwing out a number, in the strategic farmland protection area, do we want to have these other policies or requirements associated with that parcel to help protect it? Or do you want it to be everything in the strategic protection area?
That was a thought I had. I was wondering if we could try to target larger parcels, because they're going to be more targeted by developers also, I'm sure.
Well, let's think about this. If we ask for the moon, then people are going to try to negotiate, to go ahead and give us less than that. So I think we should ask for as much as we possibly can.
And how about in a case where there's already a residential house, for instance, on that? You see some over in here, for instance, you see all the smaller lots. These may be 2-acre lots or so. These may be residential. Some of that might be farmland. Some of it might have houses. I think some of that has houses on it. What do we do in that type of situation? Are we going to exclude a parcel that's not currently farmed? Or are we going to exclude single family residential? Just talk to me a little on that.
I would, if something's not being currently farmed, there's probably a reason that it's not currently farmed. So it's probably not as, my opinion would be, it's not as desirable to focus on it. I mean, most better fields and land are going to be in production, is my opinion.
What do you think, Ray?
Well, I think it's a good idea to start at the smaller units. I think you're going to make more procedures on that, but I think there's a lot of areas that are so-called protected by both now. I don't think that those need to be, aren't the like the red spots that you just put up, Doug? Isn't that already protected?
No, so that's the thing. There is no real protection in the strategic farmland protection area or the Paddleford Brook Greenway. So it is referenced in our natural resource inventory, but there's nothing, again, to prevent the developer from coming in and developing a parcel in those areas.
Well, I think we should.
Okay, Gary, what do you think?
Well, I'm not trying to skirt the issue or anything, but I'm going to be one of the votes when it gets to the town board. And I'm certainly, with agriculture background, I'd like to protect as much as we possibly could. So I don't believe it'd be fair for me to, judge at this time, since it's going to go through a committee and also the town board that I'm involved with. I'd just like to hear the input, like you're telling Doug, what the rest of the committee feels. And we got Fernando and Linda,
Oh, I'm
if they
sorry.
have ideas.
There's Gary Jones.
In that strategic farming, there's a lot of spaces, the white ones, Doug, I think you said were residential or whatever. Are those areas that we could promote?
So
the farmland?
So in this, on this map here, the green is all classified as prime farmland on this map. So all these green parcels are the prime farmland. Then the red is the farmland of statewide importance. You see more of it sprinkled in down in this area. And then the blue is the prime farmland of Drain. You see a lot of that up in the Paddleford Brook Greenway and down in this area. Then the parcels that are white have been identified as not prime farmland, even though they're in the strategic farmland protection area. But there's obviously a lot of prime farmland right around some of those parcels that are white. So when you look at the parcels, it's every parcel is different. You've got, I was trying to find an example like on Cooley Road. I don't see it, but anyway, so you've got some of these, see these smaller lots like right even in here.
Right.
Those, I believe those are houses that are already been built there. So that's not something that you would necessarily, the houses already exist and they're small lots. A lot of these have been cut up into smaller lots and through there.
That first one you highlighted there, what's right to the left of it, down the other red, right there, to the left of that. Now, what's that white spot? What would that, I'm not familiar with the land itself, so.
That I don't know off the top of my head. It's looks like it's a larger parcel. It may be being farmed, even though it's not classified as prime farmland. It's entirely possible. Brock Acres, I think, has a lot in that area, doesn't it, Bob?
Yes.
I would think.
Something else that we need to consider too in all this, Doug, maybe the town is doing some more on this than I know about, but this is going to make it even more complicated. But something that we need to think about also is not just risk of houses on this land, but solar panels, because if someone's told they can't develop their land, the next best thing they're going to go towards is probably solar panels. That puts the farmland at as much risk as anything else.
Well, that's the beauty of our agriculture committee, because you guys can almost effectively prevent that from happening. And here's how. We created our solar law right after we did the agriculture enhancement plan. You guys may remember in 2017, we had a lot of discussion and we had a lot of back and forth with the planning board, with the agriculture committee, et cetera, et cetera. So we are the only municipality I know of, and I get developers, solar developers, that yell at me, literally yell at me on the phone all the time, because the town of Canandaigua's law says that the only way that the planning board can grant approval for a solar farm is if there is not a loss of valuable agriculture land. So when you guys do that referral and you guys say this would be a loss of valuable agriculture land, it becomes very difficult for the planning board to override you because you're the agriculture committee. And so the planning board, then the planning board has to really dig into that and look at that. And I can tell you that I've had many conversations with the planning board members. They do listen and they do read your advisory reports, and especially when it comes to agriculture. So, and we are the only municipality that I know of that does that. I just literally a week ago had a solar company out of California, literally screaming at me on the phone because they were planning to build. And I said, did you read our law? And they said, well, of course. And I said, do you realize, and they were looking to put it on farmland. And I said, do you realize you're welcome to go through this whole process, but the planning board is prohibited from granting you approval if it's a loss of valuable agricultural land by town law. And you know what they said to me? Well, we didn't see that. Have a nice day. So we're,
I guess it worked.
So,
yeah, so we're
why do
very
we have the
unique.
same thing for protecting against development? Huh?
So we're very unique in that. And truthfully, Tim, that's not a bad idea. Maybe we have to write something into the code like that. Obviously, it's got to go through the process, and the town board's ultimately going to have to make that decision. But that's kind of what I'm thinking also, is something along that lines, where if the agriculture committee finds that it's in the strategic farmland protection area and a loss of viable or valuable agricultural lands, you know, maybe that's not able to be done, you know, or there's some other aspect to it.
How long would it take to put that into place?
It's still going to take a little bit of process. We have to have public hearings and obviously give everybody a chance to weigh in. Let me just remind everybody too, though, when we did the Paddleford Brook Greenway in particular and the strategic farmland protection area, there were a fair number of people that spoke out in opposition to that they didn't like being included in the Paddleford Brook Greenway and the strategic farmland protection area. And kudos for the town board for moving that forward and still creating that, because otherwise we wouldn't even be able to have this conversation that we're having now. But it's definitely, I see exactly what you guys see, the creep into those areas. And it's time for us to take the next step to slow down that creep or hopefully prevent it.
Yes.
All right, Bob, sorry I took up so much of your meeting, but I've enjoyed the conversation.
That's a very good conversation. So I guess the next step, you said you'll put some stuff together for us to look over, and we can also, anybody, you know, we don't have to communicate with each other ahead of time necessarily, send ideas to Doug or Sarah.
Right. I was kind of thinking, instead of drafting a whole law, maybe just some bullet points, if this, and kind of get some ideas of some initial thoughts with you guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Doug, your point about conservation subdivision, you know, that needs to be addressed as well. That just seems like, you know, I've seen the subdivision land. It's nothing that anybody can really use, you know, on a public basis. It's bad policy.
Gary,
So-
you want to touch base on that?
Gary.
Gary Jones, right? We've been working on that, and we were, you know, are close to putting it through the different committees for their thought process on it at the present time, because of, you know, some developments that have appeared, and, you know, it hasn't been ideal in some senses. So we're trying to narrow that down somewhat. Doug's the one that headed up that committee, basically the subcommittee. And so he's got a lot better input on it than I do by a long shot. So you want to say anything on it, Doug? Because I haven't really said much.
Nice detour there, Gary.
Nice pass.
You know, seriously though, and I know that sometimes I get chided, truthfully, I get chided by some residents sometimes about speaking out about agriculture protection and promotion too much, but it's probably the area that I'm the most passionate about, because I see the difference that we've been able to already do with the limited tools that we have. And I know there's more tools in the toolbox if we'll take them out, that we can really help protect, you know, for future generations, the agriculture aspect of the community. And that conservation subdivision one, that one really got under my skin. And we've been talking about it for a while, and we had to work through some things there. We started that process at the beginning of last year with a dynamic team, and COVID slowed us down, unfortunately. But we finally got to the point where we've got actually a draft law. I think it's been well thought out, well through. I think it's, Gary, it's the ordinance committee, I think, is referring it onto the town board, aren't they?
We are, yeah.
So it's getting close. It's getting close.
Okay, thank you.
But we have to remember too, that once farmland is lost, it's lost. There's no bring, I mean, once houses are there and whatever, it's not coming back. So we gotta think first and make sure we've got it right.
For sure.
Doug, before you go, I wanted to show the committee, some of you guys might have seen this, but I'm going to share my screen and just show you something. You know, you all know about the comp plan, you know it's coming, but our former town planner and I worked to update one of the maps that was in it. And I can't remember if I showed you guys this, but this is the map that shows all the completed and pending PDR projects that have already been awarded.
Mm.
And I mean, it's not the whole Paddlewood Brook Greenway, but it's a nice big chunk of it.
Would you pan down because we can't see the bottom? Is there anything, to the south at all?
Whoa, sorry, you didn't want me to do that. We're about 50 pages too far now. No, we don't have any PDRs in the southern part of the town.
Okay.
That is the only location we have any. But so all the orange are complete or almost complete. This one is not quite complete yet. And then this green one is part of a larger protected area that
Yeah.
goes into Farmington, the Gerlach property. It's not closed yet either, but it will be soon.
So could I make a comment? I mean, this is great. Thank you very much. And it's really encouraging to see
Yep.
that. And I would say that I was talking to, my neighbors, and there was a program called Set Aside in the 1970s. And whenever that family got together, somebody had set something aside, Thanksgiving, it just wasn't a good thing. You were setting land aside and taking money from the government to go ahead and do that. PDR is not set aside. And,
No.
and because people are thinking, oh, I'm taking money from the government to go ahead and give up my development rights. It's so they're a little confused about what PDR is versus set aside. And, generational transition is happening. So the set aside thought process is waning is what I'm trying to say. And so PDR program, might be more attractive to some of the younger people that are in the middle of the succession plan. So I would suggest that, maybe we take a look at some type of informational, program to let people know that this is not your own set aside program.
Tim, you make a fantastic point. There's two things I just want to mention here. So I believe that we do have the Hicks farm and the Weifels farm. On my screen,
sorry,
at least,
yeah.
I just
Yeah.
can't see it right now. So you
I
should.
forgot about those. Sorry.
So
I
there
was
is.
thinking about Paddleford Brook Greenway, but
Right.
yeah, the Weifels and the Hicks are down there.
They're not. The Weifels farm is in the strategic farmland protection area. The Hicks PDR is not.
Yeah.
But those are there. But the other thing is, Tim, you're talking about money and everything, and I didn't mention this, but the other thing that we've talked about in the past that we also still have not done is the TDR, the Transfer Development Rate Program. And, that's certainly something that we could revisit. We've really come a long way, I think, with Uptown Canandaigua and the form-based code. We'd originally talked about that aspect. But another way to go about this, if we're going to get serious about protection of the strategic farmland protection area, maybe we think about this a little differently, and we put the TDR place for the entire strategic farmland protection area. So we say to the developer, okay, Mr. Developer, if you're not going to build in another area of the town where we're not trying to protect agriculture, and you insist on building in the strategic farmland protection area, it's going to cost you. You have to pony up, because we're going to then protect, to make it really meaningful and hit them in the wallet. And it would be a hybrid version of the TDR program, but it's something I think we should probably talk about a little further. And maybe it's a multi-pronged approach to helping protect the strategic farmland protection area.
Absolutely. And that is the language that they understand.
Mhm.
I think that's a good idea too, because the PDR program changed this year, and I had a really long conversation with David Boehm last week. He's with Ag and Markets, and he's in charge of the program, and he's one of the people that looks at the applications and makes decisions. And the program is changing; it's becoming more difficult to participate in, and there's more requirements. So, although I think it's still a good program, and we still have good chances and good parcels that would make a good fit, we can't just rely on that to be our only permanent farmland protection easement program. With the
I know the
TDR,
T-
we can make more of our own decisions.
I know the TDRs are something you talked about 3 or 4 years ago, Doug, but it really hasn't been discussed and probably since then, I don't believe, has it?
No, it really hasn't. And maybe it's the TDR program. Maybe we write our own protection program. Maybe it's the Canandaigua PDR program. We have an open space fund. I want to say, I'm pretty sure we have $1 million currently in the open space fund that the town board has contributed money to, which is fantastic. But maybe we do this again, well, like what we're talking about, where if the developer is going to go in that area, they're going to need to pony up basically and help fund that and have basically a land bank that we can then administer our own program and put conservation easements on from the town of Canandaigua. Because it sounds like to me, there is a national protection program also, and Sarah's been working on both of those, but it really seems like the state is really targeting specific parcels now. And who knows, that may change again in the future, but it's, as Sarah said, it's more difficult. Some of the farms that would have qualified even the last round wouldn't qualify now.
Yeah, so one of the things I'm pretty certain that this is the requirement, and I think they use the word must for the parcels have to fall in our designated protection area. That didn't used to be a requirement. So now, we wouldn't, when we were taking applications 2 years ago from, landowners who wanted to see if we would accept their parcel into the PDR application process, there was a bunch we wouldn't have even looked at now under these new requirements, because there were several that fell outside of the strategic farmland protection area. And now we wouldn't even be able to consider them at all. Now, again, like Doug said, this could change again, but for right now, for this round, it says must, they have to fall in it. And also now they're not really accepting farming practices that are not majority livestock or crop production. They're not doing that as much. Before they would have accepted, maple and stuff, but that can be a side, like I don't want to say side gig, but that can be a part of the farming operation, but it can't be a majority of it anymore.
Gotcha.
Not that we ever tried to put those parcels through before, but now that we have so many of the large crop farms protected, we're getting more interest from some of our more diverse farming operations that have a little bit of crops, a little bit of honey, a little bit of maple, and those just aren't going to be as competitive in the state program anymore.
Isn't the payout less too?
No.
As far as differential goes? No?
Oh, the percentage from the state has not changed. It's still 75%. But yes, we are finding that appraisals are coming back with a smaller difference than maybe what we thought before.
Maybe because of the big impact of real estate, jumping up in value. Maybe some of these properties should be reappraised. I bet you they've gone up in value.
Would the TDRs, Doug, make it something we get on the books, make it help the creep to some degree until we get some of this other stuff ironed out?
I think it could. The TDR program can get very complex, but if we really try to keep it simple, and maybe incorporate some of the other things that we talked about relative to, I wrote down a bunch of notes from when you guys were talking, but if we try to incorporate some of these aspects of, you know, essentially making it, giving some flexibility, but as Tim said, asking for the moon and really kind of hitting, maybe it's a big ask. I mean, when it comes to TDR, we have to talk about credits and those types of things, but maybe it becomes a big ask and it relates back to the prime soils. So if you're going to take a piece of active farming operation with prime soils out of agricultural operation to create a housing development, a major housing development, maybe it's a huge ask versus a parcel that maybe isn't prime soils and isn't actively farmed. So we've got to figure out some details associated with that.
That's a really good policy. I like that very much. And it'll definitely pump the brakes. And then it'll also provide funding to purchase development rights for some of the more prime lands that are of greater interest to us without, outside help outside of the town.
Yeah, and
Excellent.
one of the reasons that the TDR program slowed down is we were focusing on the uptown area, and
Mhm.
some people had argued that it seems to conflict with our goals for the uptown area of encouraging developers to look to that part of town to develop rather than elsewhere. But we were trying to use that with the TDR. But Doug, I think what you said about using our strategic farmland protection area with the TDR and all of it in that area instead, that might make it much more palatable.
Right.
And then maybe we need to go ahead and take a look at redraw some of these strategic farmland protected area lines so that it incorporates the fact that there are creep on those lines. If we push the lines back further, the creep won't be so bright in the face of the farmer. And I'm just looking at 5 and 20, the line as it comes down 5 and 20, and then down all the way down Route 21. I don't know. I don't want to be drawing lines tonight, but it's just the idea. So,
I mean, and
All right.
TDR should probably also incorporate the strategic forest protection area. That's
Mhm.
just
yeah,
Yes.
that's part of the moon.
right. Yeah.
All right. Well, that was some very good conversation we had on all that.
Sarah,
Yes.
when do you expect there might be an availability of these new maps?
This is in the draft comprehensive plan that will be moving its way towards the town board soon, within a month or two. So if this plan is adopted with the map the way it's drawn, then this will be our new ag map. I wouldn't say it replaces the other one, but it's kind of an updated alternate
Yeah.
version.
Well, I think it's a good tool because it's got the parts itemized that already have gotten
Yeah.
PDRs.
I should mention though, this map it's fine as its own thing. It's just that this is as it is in the comprehensive plan, but I have this map just as its own file already.
Mhm, mhm. Okay,
Well, anybody can get that on the internet, can't they, Sarah?
Yeah, this is the online document I clicked on.
oh, we can.
You can see it. It's if you go to the town's website and click on projects, it brings you a page with a bunch of blue buttons, and you click on the comprehensive plan update, or I think it says comp plan update. Actually, I have it right here.
This is Comprehensive Plan 2021, Town of Canandaigua.
Yeah, and then it'll bring you to this page when you click on the comp plan project button, and this link here is what is the document, the draft document. And
Okay,
that's where that page is, page 36. But yeah,
thank you.
it was nice to be able to update that. because we've added a lot. None of these parcels in the northeast corner of the town were on there before.
We've got a couple other things to cover, so if we let Doug go if we're finished with
I
him.
got
tonight.
a few things I gotta do here in my office, so I'll just turn my camera off, but I'll be in the background if you need me.
Hi, Doug.
Thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
All right.
So we want to get the referrals done and then we can have a brief conversation on the fair.
Sure.
Sure. Let me get. I did not
Uh-oh.
get that stuff pulled up this time because we were talking about the other stuff. But I will.
Ouch. Nice picture.
There we go. So we had a really short conversation about these last week when we didn't have the real meeting, when we were just talking about them. But you've got 2 referrals. The first one is on Cooley Road, 2504 Cooley Road. And I'll pull it up here in just a second. I've got a spinning wheel. I can't do anything yet on my screen. But this parcel is owned by someone in the Brocklebank family. It is not a part of their permanently protected PDR parcels. It's separate. And they are just going to take a small chunk of a larger parcel and build a home, driveway, and like septic system and stuff on it. And as soon as I can do it, I will show you where it is.
Is this Gene Booker
No,
property? No?
no. All right. Because I'm sharing my screen, I have the little boxes with all of your faces. It covers everything. I have to keep moving stuff around.
Do you want us to kill the video?
No, it'll still show you. It's fine. I just moved you over to the other side. Okay. So the highlighted parcel is the parent parcel. And this just kind of give you an idea of where it is. You got County Road 30 here and Cooley Road here. And this is the parcel in question. They want to subdivide this corner down here and build a house and all the associated things that come with it. I will pull up, sorry, I didn't do this ahead of time like I usually do. But I'll pull up the site plan as quick as I can. There we go. Oh, it's tilted. So this only shows the little corner of the bigger parcel. So it doesn't show the whole parcel. This is just the part they're proposing to subdivide off and then build a house on. So if I come back to this, I can zoom in. Oops. You can see it's got a little ditch. So it's just this area down here. So obviously you guys are getting the referral because It is currently farmed and it's next to other properties that are also currently farmed. And they want to subdivide it and they want to build.
How many acres is it?
The larger parcel is 35 acres. And the remaining parcel, it should say on there.
Does it show in the legend?
Sometimes. Yeah, I think there's a subdivision plat map. I just need to get that pulled up. So 2.145 or 146. So pretty much 2.1 acres is going to be the resulting parcel, which is probably because that's how it's zoned and that's what's required.
That's Bracco Bank.
Yep.
That residence,
Yes.
that would be.
Yeah, I don't even think that parcel is farmed. It's right next to the other land that's farmed, and their current house is an old house that's right next to the
there.
parcel. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know what they do here.
Well, that's farmed, but there's a small strip along there that's not farmed, so I don't really know.
Okay. So yeah, it's just this little section by the road.
It's
Is where that-
interesting. Here we are trying to protect farmland and, you know, but, you know, it is a single family unit and, you know, it is part of a larger farming operation.
Right.
Where do you draw the line?
My knowing what it looks like and everything, my vote would be that it's not causing any significant loss.
What type of soil is it?
Let me pull up the sheet.
I'm trying to support your position, Bob.
Let's see. So the yellow box is because I can't give you soils for the tiny section because it's not parceled off yet.
Mhm.
It's not its own parcel. So this is the entire big 35-acre parcel, but I looked at the soils map. I pulled up the soil maps and it's these three soils are the only soil types in that smaller part.
Are there
Obviously, they take up more than just that smaller part, but this is the three types that occur within the 2-acre parcel.
What are the three parts? I don't see what you're referring to.
Odessa silt loam 0 to 3%, Ovid silt loam 0 to 3%, and Ovid silt loam 3 to 8%. Those are the three types of soils that occur in the 2-acre plot.
Is it anything of note?
I don't have the soil types memorized for whether that's prime or not. But I can look that up. But I would have to get back to you on that.
That's fine. I agree with Bob. It's nothing significant.
I mean, it's not. They want to build a single home. It's not something that's going to turn into a development. It's right next to that is PDR right next to that, correct?
Let me see if I still have my map up. So
I thought that was some of
This
the
is-
Bracco Bank's PDR, but maybe I'm wrong.
well, no, it's
No.
not. But we had an inaccurate map up until about a year ago that showed parcels that the Bracco Banks had originally wanted to put this parcel and this parcel in their PDR, but they did not. So that's been corrected. But this parcel, I think, is it might be that one. Let's look at it. No, that might be too big. It might be that one. Let's see if I can tell. Or maybe Bob, you're more familiar with it.
Is it right next to this where they want to put this house? There's a very large field.
Yeah. And that's
Who
also
owns-
owned by Brocklebanks.
Brockle Banks.
Well,
Yeah. Or at least
So
that's what it says.
I
on
would
the
think that if the family should be able to,
Yes.
the residents
Yeah.
on their own land.
Yep.
And good, bad, or indifferent, what kind of farmland it is, they should have that right.
I second that.
All in
Okay.
favor, say aye.
Aye.
I,
All opposed? Okay,
Actually, I think it's that one. That little weird
Yeah,
shaped
Yeah,
one.
that's right.
Good. Looks like it.
So it's near some of their stuff, but it's not included.
Okay.
Okay. So your next one. Sorry, laptop buttons don't like me. Is the hot topic. This is okay, so the next one is this one, but also you all know what this one is. You all know they want to come and build houses, but for the couple of you that were on last week, the project has changed, it's evolved, and now they're including not this whole thing, but this section of this other parcel that is north of Paris Street Extension is now included in their plans. So this parcel plus this section right here. And they're just proposing an expanded version of what you've seen before. I will pull it up. I think it's up farther to the top.
I'd say it's definitely a significant loss of farmland.
Yeah. I figured I knew what you guys would say before you even looked at the map.
Make them pay for it with a TDR.
So this is turned sideways, this view. So this is Paris Street Extension. This here is Bristol County Road 32, and then move my page down. And then here is Route 21, and then this over here is the parking lot for Miller Park. So you know how it's oriented.
Sweet.
So whereas originally when you first saw this project, it stopped here and just included houses up here, but now they've expanded it down.
So how many properties is this?
I think they're proposing 92 units. They're not single family homes, they're townhomes. And if you can see, some of them are 2 next to each other and some of them are 3. Now, under the current zoning, they're only allowed to have, I think, 80-ish, but
Right.
there's a section of town code that says that a developer can ask for up to 15% more homes than what the current zoning allows if they provide public access. And so that is what they've proposed. This land out here, I think, Gary, I don't know if we've actually got like a
there's another
parceled
drawing.
out. Is there a drawing that shows the easement? Anyway, I don't think there is on here.
It comes back onto Perry Street, the one I've seen last.
Yeah, I don't think that the maps I have show the actual easements, but what they're proposing is that this open space area where that pond, well, it's kind of filled in, but this area down here and then all this over here be an easement that the town holds, conservation easement, and then the trails would be open to the public instead of just open to the people that would live there. like Lakewood Meadows has trails, but only, it's not open to the public. This one would be so that anybody could walk on them. And
Can it be
think that-
farmed?
All
Sorry?
we're, go ahead. All we're charged with is it taking up a lot of farmland.
Yes, it does
Whether
result
we
in the
like what they're
loss of
doing or not.
farmland.
And that's all we can vote on here. Not whether we like it or not.
Well, I was just explaining why they're
No, I
asking
understand,
for
but,
more.
yeah.
homes.
Because on that, I believe there isn't, Sarah, on that parcel, two of them combined, I think there's going to be like 70 some acres that is going to be, you know,
Undeveloped,
yeah, it's a word.
yeah.
For now.
Let me,
No, no. for
No, it
good.
would be a conservation easement,
Right.
never to
Okay.
be,
All right.
it would be protected open space, not farmland, but open space.
Sarah, let me just share my screen for a quick second, just so I can show the other thing.
Oh
that
yeah,
Gary's
hold on
looking
a
at.
second. There, you should be able to now.
So this is the other drawing that we kind of have.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to show you this. So this obviously is all currently farmed. This is the Morel parcel currently, and this is, I think, Bob, you guys are farming this, right? So,
Yes.
so that definitely, you know, farmland incredibly impacted there. Then there's a piece that's being farmed here. I don't know, is you guys, you're not farming this, are you? Isn't it Charlie Miller?
Yeah, I believe so.
I think
Sure.
Charlie Miller's farming this, and he's also farming the other side of the road. And then he's farming this strip here and this strip here. So you can see there's definitely a loss of farmland, obviously, on this section here. But what they have said and they've proposed is if Charlie wants to continue farming these pieces here, and then the rest of this was still, that's going to be separately owned,
Yeah.
that he could do this. And then they're proposing a variety of easements to the town of Canandaigua associated with the protection of the rest of this open space. Whether or not it's, you know, seriously, I don't think it has as much meaning, truthfully, for farmland as we've talked about, but this is Miller Park right here. So it does have a value for the trail extensions from Miller Park, but it's certainly, from an agriculture perspective, I don't think there's anything you could say except for the loss of farmland there.
Right.
And
Thanks
then
for bringing that up. I'd forgotten about that.
That's okay. So
But
then there is
thanks, sir.
residential buffering that they're proposing and everything associated with it, trails, etc. This is the style of the homes they're constructing. They're townhomes, but they look like single family homes from the front. So they're loaded from the front and the side. So here's the garage for the one, here would be the garage for the other. So I just wanted to show you that because I happened to have it handy, so.
Because don't they also, Doug, have it already approved that they could build single family homes if they wanted to, or were forced to, or whatever?
Yeah, so this actually showing right here, so they could actually today, it's been approved for many, many years. They could build 80 homes, single family homes, and take up basically every piece of greenery there is under the prior approval, under the conservation subdivision. So you see that's all laid out here, and that would really consume that entire parcel versus, you know, I guess the silver lining on the cloud, right, is that there would be some protection, there would be more green space. It's not necessarily agricultural land, but there's green space around associated with doing it like this.
Could I make a point, please? You know, basically, if you're going to put 80 townhomes, that's 2 families per townhome, 2 cars per townhome, at least maybe 4 cars per townhome. The traffic and the interaction of the people that are living there with the farming community is, it's not going to be pretty. They're going to complain about, they're going to be on the road, they're going to be interacting with tractors, they're going to be complaining about the smell of the manure. I'd rather have 80 single family homes because the population density is less than what they're proposing here, and have it be what it is.
It's the same number of units.
Yeah, but
But that's not our say. right?
But each unit has how many different residents?
One.
There are
Unit,
two-
one
there are
townhome
two.
unit is like one single family home as far as the count.
So
So,
it's the same. It's the
so
same.
the, you know how I showed you some of them were 2 right next to each other and some of them were 3 right next to each other? That's 2 townhome units or 3 townhome units. It's not, yeah, I mean, it's still, you know, one townhome unit is for one family.
It's still the same number of units, whether it's single family homes or townhomes, it's the same number of units. They're not building 80 fourplexes. They're building 80 units or 92, I think is actually.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
I move we vote that it's taking out valuable farmland.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
I,
So I've got that written. I'll get that stuff edited in our document and send that out. And that was it for referrals. It was just those 2 this time.
Okay, real quick, I know we're getting kind of late, so just real quick on the fair, I talked to Casey. And he said they're basically open to whatever interest we had. They have a pretty light schedule in the new building. They've just been kind of planning light and being kind of quiet because everything looks like it's going in the right direction, but you never know what will happen. So he did not give me a time frame yet on when they would want some plans, but if we're interested in doing something similar to last year or what we were talking about last year, then that would work.
And what was that, Bob? What were we?
Believe we talked quite a bit about doing some type of program about water quality, lake
Oh,
quality.
yeah, right.
Oh yeah, about farming and water quality and what
Yep.
farmers can
Runoff
do.
and all that, yeah.
Yeah.
It's too bad. Yeah, that's a good program. I think that would be good. Too bad we didn't have a lot more time when we could address what we talked about with Doug earlier, that we could put together a program concerning the encroachment of houses or in the protected area. And then we could,
Well,
Bring it
and
to the
Lake,
public.
we actually just had a tour at the farm recently of the watershed association, and that all those houses there would definitely have a big impact, I would think.
So do we have a plan if we agree to do this, you know, do we have enough time to do it well?
I think so. I'll as long as we have interest in doing it again, I'll send Casey an email tonight to check on what the time frame is. And he did have some ideas of trying to get soil and water possibly involved, and he had some ideas on how to get us some help getting things together also
Okay,
with some other groups.
The Canandaigua Lake Watershed Association, I think, has like a water table that shows runoff and how it enters the lake and stuff. So, I mean, if like what you just said, Bob, if you could get a couple different people, soil and water, and you guys and them, could be a whole water themed.
Well, they actually reached out to me because they had no one with any agriculture involvement on their board, or basically none of them had even been on a farm before. So luckily we got to give them a tour.
Wow.
And they want some ways to get involved a little bit more to learn more about agriculture and the impacts. So that might be a good way to work together with them, because they were all pretty open-minded. Obviously farming does have an impact, but my opinion is all the houses around the lake probably have a lot more of an impact, but that may or may not be true.
Yeah. What I really liked about what we were talking about when we just talked about doing this before is that, I mean, yeah, certainly farming has an impact, but I think what most people don't know is what you guys do to mitigate that or make it better. You know, I think that's a really important story to tell.
Yeah.
there's a lot of drain being put into the ground, that's for sure.
So Okay, well, I'll reach out to them too and see if they would have some interest in doing something with us.
So,
Sounds good.
Get a
Okay.
time frame from
do we
Casey.
have any idea of when we'll be able to meet back in person again?
I think you can begin to meet according to rules. We've had a couple committees meet in person. So we can look into that.
I'd be fine with that if everyone else is.
Yeah, I would too.
That's fine.
Me too.
One of the other committees is meeting in person for the first time next Tuesday. Gary, I didn't tell you guys that yet, but CIC is going to be invited to come and meet in person on Tuesday. So, and
Okay.
that's, a more significantly sized group. So I don't see why you guys couldn't. Because I did ask Doug the other day, if we can start inviting groups to come back. And he said, yeah, we can.
So we could actually go to the town highway for our next
Probably,
meeting?
maybe.
Yeah, well, let's look into that, and if so, then we'll plan on that.
Well, when's the fair?
Late July, right?
All right.
Believe so. Late July.
So we'd have one more meeting before that.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you'd only have one more meeting, so you might need to actually meet again if you want to do something for the fair. You
That-
might need a
is
second
that
meeting.
enough time?
Let's
know.
see. We'll see what we find out the next. I guess in this next coming week from any other groups that
Okay.
like the Watershed Association and maybe Soil and Water, and then we'll plan another meeting if we need to.
Okay,
All right.
All
sounds
right.
good.
Anything else?
I move we adjourn.
All right,
Again.
Thanks, everybody. Have a
Thank
good
you,
night.
Yep.
Okay, night, everybody.
Yeah.
okay,
Right.
thanks.
See ya.
Bye.
Later.
See you, Ray.